Alright, so hello everybody, my name is William. Alright, now today I'm going to be talking about, well, about stopping CSAM. Now, I don't know much about CSAM, but we can learn about it anyway. But we can learn about it, that's why. Right here, it says it weakens end-to-end encryption and gives news savings to powers to law enforcement. Okay, that's all right. That's C. Right, let's learn about it. So stopping S. So stopping. So this one says stop CSAM. I don't know what CSAM stand for though. That's why. What does it stand for? Let me Google that. Okay, it's called child sexual abuse material. Okay. Well, so the bill is called Stop CSAM Act. So there's a House bill for it, there's a Senate bill for it, huh? Can't see it because it's blocked? Okay. Well, no matter, I'll show it to you anyway on my phone. But yeah. It stands for child sexual abuse material. That's what it's called anyway. Now, it is true, I'm against child abuse. That's why. So what does this mean? Reverse or any content showing child sexuality should be used or exploited. Includes real photos and live streams, synthetic or AI generated images. Replace all this accurate evidence for sexual or serious crime or legal pornography. Well, let me tell you something. If your child is seeing this, it's because of the parents. It's the parents' fault for doing this. Not, our government should have nothing to do with this. It's the parents' fault for putting your children onto this. That's why. So if your kid is seeing sexual abuse material, is seeing a child, if your child is seeing a child abuse material, it's because the parents' fault, not not the government and not big tech either. So that's why our lawmakers should not make these unconstitutional laws, but they are anyway because they're stupid. But at least I Google it anyway, that's why. Now let's read about this. But at least I Google it to find out what it stands for anyway. So there is a... Alright, well, let me show to you what stopping CSAM is from my phone. I'll show you the House bill and the Senate bill for it. And they probably got introduced individually. I don't have an answer for it. So the Senate bill is called. The Senate bill is 1829. It's called Stop CSAM Act. Right here, it says the bill revises its federal framework governing prevention of online child exploitation and protection of victims. Okay, expand requirements, electronic communication service providers and remote community service providers, expand relating penalties and remedies. Alright, I'm not going to read all of it to you. You can read it to yourself right here. It's right here. If you want to read the full text. Here. You can read the text to yourself right here. I'm trying to show it to you from my phone because my computer's not working. It's not good because the computer's not showing to me. That's why. But that's a Senate bill. Where's the? It says there's a House bill for it too. Okay, so the House, so the Senate one was introduced in May of last year. All right, and now what about the House one? It got introduced in June of last year. Yep, and it says the very same thing. I'll let you read it to yourself. Oops. Let me get my keyboard down. Because I want to read the text, but my keyboard's in the way. Alright, so here's the text. You can read this to yourself if you want to. Just so you know, you can read this to yourself if you want to. I don't want to go full deal. I don't want to read. I don't read about the bill myself anyway. But yeah, read it. You can also read it to yourself if you want to anyway. But yeah, I'm just showing it to you. I just showed it to you with my phone because my computer is not working on it very well. But yeah, so that's read about it. So here it says, did the Federal Commission say no to Stop CSAM? And we can also read about this part too. Right here. So what is CSAM? Well, let's read about this, alright? It's a new legislation introduced in Congress will undermine secure encryption and threaten our free speech online, while lawmakers claim the Stop CSAM Act will protect children. It would actually put kids and teenagers in danger by weakening encryption that protects their privacy and sabotaging Section 230 protections, opening the door for the censorship of vital internet resources. Sign the petition and tell your lawmakers to oppose Stop CSAM and other attempts to weaken encryption like the Internet Act. Child safety on the internet is extremely important, but weakening free speech and encryption does not keep children safe. Strong data privacy action does. Alright, and then you can read it, and here, I'll read this. Suppose Stop CSAM and any other attempts to weaken end-to-end encryption, like the Internet Act. Child safety on the internet is extremely important, but weakening Free speech and encryption does not keep children safe. Strong data privacy legislation does. You need privacy laws, right, to protect internet. That's why. So right here. Wait, so this question here is, so wait, wouldn't Stop CSAM protect children online? Stop CSAM is a misguided attempt of making the internet safe for children. Actually, Stop CSAM has similar similarities with the Internet Act, a dangerous bill advanced by Sin Lindsey Graham that would weaken internet encryption. Okay, so E2EE protects, eventually on the internet, messages from sender and the receiver. For LGBTQ plus youth, E2EE can paramount safety and time widespread, special time and physical LGBTQ plus resources. But E2EE is a denial of safety of survivors of personal violence and stalking, abortion seekers and providers, and activists. Weakening E2EE means a funnel more information for the law enforcement, alarming pursuit of our government for surveillance. All of us, including children, need to be able to communicate in the digital age without conversations being spied on. Right? I know. Well, that is true. I know abortion is murder, but we need to be free to talk about it on the internet. And LGBTQ is just talking about sodomy. We need to be free to talk about this. If they don't, because that's why. If Congress want to keep children safe on the internet, they should work on passed comprehensive data privacy laws to protect all users. It's what practices of big tech. Well, that's what we have to tell our lawmakers to do. That's what we have to ask our lawmakers to do. That's why. You might have to call them and tell them to stop this stupid bill called CSAM. We need to get this bill to die. That's the answer right there anyway. And right here it says fight for the future. This is for the take it down thing, yeah, that's why. But let's read about this anyway. Who are we? We are a group of artists, engineers, and activists and technologists who have been behind the largest online protests in human history, challenging internet outrage into political power to win the public interest victories previously thought to be possible. We fight for a future where technology is forced for liberation, not oppression. And it says join the fight. Battle lines are drawn. Technology as the power of our society, impede injustice, hold powerful institutions accountable, and it also been used to stop marginalized, abolish compression, and trip over basic rights. This is a battleground we fight on. Defending technology, a force, liberation, not tyranny. Yeah, you can also read this to yourself right here. And now let's get into Alright, this is what I found out from Reform California that I don't like at all. It says California Democrats back taxes on middle class but protect the billionaires. Well, that's why. Well, this is why Gavin Newsom is opposing the billionaire tax. That's right. I know. But even though the California Democrats were endorsing the billionaire tax, so that's why. So yeah, they want to tax billionaires too, not So, but yeah, it's Gavin Newsom and also like Steve Becerra that want to protect the billionaires, but put taxes on the middle class and also the poor too. That's why. Yeah, I know, it's just not good. So the California Democrats are once again improving who really pays bills in Gavin Newsom's California working families to support business and middle class. But how they could move, the California Democrats are rushing to impose a massive tax on billionaires. Note, Reform CA opposes the billionaire tax too, but that's very consistent. Carl DeMille, chairman of Reform California, and the California State Assembly member, are blasting the Newsom Sacramento Democrats, pushing new taxes on working families, while at the same time opposing the California billionaire tax measure. Well, that's Prop 40 anyway. That's why. Yeah, make sure you vote no on Prop 40. Anyway, let's keep reading this. Republicans are consistent. We oppose all constantly unfair tax hikes, full stop. But Gavin Newsom and the California Democrats are raising taxes on the middle class while protecting billionaires. DeMille notes how Democrats are taxing the middle class, while Sacramento Democrats have one thing clear: when we need more money, they go straight after the working families and the middle class. You are just the ways of Newsom and the California Democrats raising costs on everyday Californians. Alright, so tax hikes. The state budget deals $3.5 billion in tax hikes, including on new sales tax, on software purchases, and job-killing payroll tax hike of employee in the state. So health insurance and premium tax. The largest state budget includes new tax large on health plans. And that cost that introduced these leaders warn that will pass on to consumers. And 3 or 4 that could mean roughly $425 more per year and higher health care costs. Higher gas prices. California's gas tax jumped on again on July 1st. 360.4 cents per gallon, but diesel rising to 48.2 cents per gallon. That means families have to pay more and commute to work, drive their kids to school, and live their daily lives. Constant mandates. The regulations and mandates imposed out of control state agents remain one of the biggest drivers of California's high cost of living. But the budget contains no serious reforms and retain these costs. These are backdoor tax hikes on families. Who cannot afford California, DeMille said. Sacramento politicians created a budget mess, and now they want working families to clean it up. Newsom opposes the billionaire tax, while middle class pays more. The hypocrisy becomes even more obvious. Look at billionaire tax debate. While Newsom and the California Democrats are raising taxes for working families, Governor Gavin Newsom is publicly opposing the 2026 ballot measure will impose one-time tax on individuals that cost worth more than $1 billion in covered assets. Reform California opposes tax hikes across the board. But DeMille says contracts exposes the hypocrisy of Sacramento Democrats. This is not about fairness. This is about protecting Sacramento's political machine. Working families get squeezed while political class and the billionaire allies get protected, stated DeMille. The issue is not that California needs another tax. This issue is Sacramento politicians are constantly looking for new ways to take more money from Californians instead of cutting waste, reducing spending, and making government live within its means. California already has some of the highest taxes and the highest cost of living in the country. Families are paying more for gas and groceries and housing and utilities, health care, and insurance and everyday necessities. Small businesses and struggling. higher operating tools, and higher living costs, and higher energy costs, and more government mandates. Well, yeah, including age verification, age attestation as well. That's why. I don't know why you're not mentioning that, Carl DeMille, but yeah, that's what's been happening too. I mean, I know. If we get Steve Hilton as governor, hopefully we can get these laws repealed. You know, make better laws for California. That's why. And get new lawmakers. For California. I know it doesn't have to be Republicans. I know that's why. But that's what I'm voting for anyway. But instead of okay, so we're just keeping on. They do not have a revenue problem, but they have a spending addiction, DeMille said. Instead of fixing the mess ahead, some politicians keep reaching the pockets of working Californians. Now, I do believe there's going to be Democrats after November, but we still need to vote for Republicans. That's why. We're not going to be able to vote every Democrat out of California. That's why. Out of office in California, but we can be able to vote as many Republicans as we can. That's all we can do anyway. And maybe we're going to say the Republicans can't win in California. Well, first of all, you don't know that, and you're just saying that about Florida and Texas. You just like saying the Democrats can't win in Florida or Texas either. Well, I think you're stupid for saying that, you know? You know, that's why. I'm a Republican living in California. I'm not, I'm just something. And Republican has won in California before. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I know, and then before that, I know, was Ronald Reagan, but that was back in the 1960s, so that's why. So... they think it's different now, that's why. And they think everything is different, and that's why. And they think COVID. And well, just because California's majority Democrat doesn't mean Republicans can't win in California. Okay, I know, you're stupid for saying that. First of all, and plus, Carl DeMille is a Republican lawmaker in California, and they'll know that's why. I support Carl DeMille. Anyway. Anyway, hopefully you can call your representatives and senators and tell them to, and ask them to vote no on Stop CSAM, because it's a bad bill, and you don't want it. That's why. We don't want CSAM. So just tell your representatives and tell them to vote no on this. Because I thought that's all we can do anyway. And if it does become law, you don't have to ask for a repeal. That's why. Alright, so that's it. And then I think I'll talk about next video is. Well, maybe I'll show it to you from YouTube. I think next video we'll be talking about is the Stop Nick Shirley Act. Well, I'll talk about that next video. and I'll tell you the name. I'll tell you the name that the California Democrats are calling it. Okay, because that's why. Well, I'll talk about that bill again. You know what? I'll talk about that bill again next video, because that way we can talk about. Because we can talk about that's why, and then just say. Well, I'll come back on them later. But anyway, I have to go right now, so what we have to do if the Stop Insurance Act becomes law. Well, we will have to do is ask for repeal later on in the future and some other legislation if we can. I don't know. But you also need to vote for new lawmakers this November anyway, and so is in November 2028, and also in November 2030 as well. You know that's why. And we need to stop voting for the same people as well. You know that's all we can do anyway. Vote for different people, no matter what party they're on. That's why. And hope we can get young people to become lawmakers. Well, why? Well, because so that way, and I mean young ones that will know how the internet works. That's why. You know, this is why we need to learn about that. Anyway, so I'll talk about the Stopping Extremity Acts next video anyway, because I have to go right now. But thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll say goodbye. Adios. 再见。